You know that sinking feeling when peace seems impossible around someone. No matter how carefully you speak, it somehow ends in chaos. It starts small, a disagreement over nothing, a subtle jab wrapped in charm, or a wave of guilt you can't explain. Then, without warning, you find yourself defending things you never did, questioning what's real, and wondering how every calm moment turns into another emotional storm. This isn't random. For many who have faced a narcissistic woman, whether as a partner, a friend, a parent, or even a coworker, the pattern feels hauntingly familiar. It's not about conversation or connection. It's about control. This video dives deep into the hidden psychological game behind those endless arguments, showing how a narcissistic woman uses conflict as her silent weapon to keep emotional power over others. And more importantly, how you can step out of that exhausting loop with clarity and strength. The emotional loop that keeps you hooked. A narcissistic woman lives off the rise and fall of other people's feelings. Every strong reaction from you, a raised voice, a cry, or even sharp silence, acts like fuel for her sense of importance. When emotions flare, she feels seen and powerful. This is not about wanting attention in a healthy way. It is about shaping the emotional environment so that she always has control. Conflict becomes the mechanism that keeps you tied to her. The more energy spent explaining and defending, the deeper the attachment becomes. Defending yourself trains the body and brain to expect drama. Decisions stop coming from calm thinking and instead come from reacting on impulse. Life changes from actually choosing how to live to surviving each emotional wave. This pattern grows stronger through repetition. When arguments and high emotion happen often, the nervous system adapts. The body learns that tension is normal and calm feels strange or unsafe. Over time, peace itself can trigger suspicion. Quiet becomes interpreted as a sign something is wrong, and silence becomes unbearable because it removes the emotional feedback the narcissist depends on. This slow conditioning is how control takes root. It does not require physical force. It uses tiny, repeated emotional pushes that change what feels safe, normal, and sane. In practical terms, the loop looks like this. A small irritation becomes an accusation. The accusation becomes a fight. The fight becomes the focus, and the aftermath leaves the other person more anxious and vigilant. That anxiety then makes the person more likely to react quickly the next time, which again feeds the narcissist. This cycle tightens like a rope around daily life, making escape feel harder with every turn. The shift of blame, making you the villain. When arguments erupt, the spotlight quietly moves away from the real issue and lands on the other person. This shifting of blame rewrites reality so that the narcissist looks calm and reasonable, while the other person becomes the one seen as overly emotional or unstable. It is a deliberate move with a clear aim: to avoid responsibility and maintain moral high ground. This tactic works because it forces the targeted person into a defensive position. Instead of focusing on the real problem, energy is spent proving innocence or explaining motives. That constant need to prove oneself creates guilt, even when no wrongdoing occurred. Over time, this breeds self-doubt. The person begins to apologize for their own needs, to censor their words, and to anticipate criticism before it even happens. Guilt becomes a powerful tool in this scenario. The narcissist uses it like an emotional leash, quietly ensuring the other person curtails behavior that might threaten the narcissist's control. Small accommodations, followed by bigger ones, become the new normal. Avoiding triggers or walking on eggshells is not a sign of care. It is a sign that the balance of power has shifted. The long-term effect is a shrinking of personal boundaries. The victim starts to tiptoe through conversations, preemptively softening opinions and withdrawing honest feeling to avoid being cast as the villain. That withdrawal only confirms the narcissist's belief that emotional control is effective. In this way, blame shifting does two things. It preserves the narcissist's image, and it erodes the other person's sense of self-worth. The chaos strategy, keeping you off balance. Clarity is the enemy of manipulation. When things are clear, decisions can be made, and strength can form. A narcissistic woman uses chaos as a strategic tool because confusion keeps other people dependent on her narrative. That fog of uncertainty is the field where manipulation grows easiest. Tactics that create chaos are subtle. Words get mixed up, promises are forgotten, events are recast. One day a plan exists, the next day it never happened. These small disturbances pile up. Facing them feels like trying to solve a puzzle that keeps changing shape. That repeated disorientation erodes confidence in memory, decision-making, and emotional judgment. When uncertainty reigns, the targeted person starts to look to the narcissist for answers. The narcissist becomes the keeper of the truth simply because everything else seems unreliable. Seeking validation from the person responsible for the confusion is an ironic but common response. People naturally look for explanations where the noise is loudest. That is exactly the trap the narcissist wants. The result is a broken inner compass. Trust in personal perceptions weakens, making it easier to accept the narcissist's version of reality. Over time, that dependence can solidify into a pattern where the victim continually checks with the narcissist before making choices, big or small. The more that happens, the less independent the person becomes, and the more power the narcissist accumulates. Control through contradiction. Contradiction is a quiet but brutal form of control. A narcissistic woman may switch from warmth to coldness, from praise to cutting remarks, often without explanation. These sudden changes do more than confuse. They create a constant state of alert, where the other person is always trying to predict mood and behavior. Emotional whiplash trains attention in the wrong direction. Instead of paying attention to what is healthy or true, the targeted person spends time guessing which version of the woman will appear today. That guessing game becomes a full-time job. Plans are made around potential volatility. Honest expression is avoided, for fear it will trigger an unpredictable response. The contradiction serves a clear purpose. It makes the narcissist the center of emotional gravity. When the ground beneath someone keeps shifting, the only perceived stable point is the person who causes the shift. Dependence deepens because the targeted person believes staying close will maintain access to the good moments while minimizing the bad ones. This is a painful illusion. The short, rare moments of affection are used as reinforcement to keep the person engaged and hopeful. Breaking free from contradiction requires reclaiming personal standards for how people should treat one another. It means refusing to normalize inconsistent behavior and recognizing that stability, quiet, predictable respect is a reasonable expectation in any relationship. That recognition weakens the contradiction's power and opens the door to healthier choices. Each of these tactics works together like parts of a machine. Understanding them in clear, simple terms helps unravel the machine's gears. The more the patterns are named, the less mysterious they become, and the more space opens up for steady, conscious choices that protect well-being. 5. How she feeds on your reaction. Every time you argue, every time your voice trembles or your heart races, she feels powerful. That energy, that emotion, it's what keeps her sense of superiority alive. Even negative attention is still attention. She doesn't need your love as much as she needs your emotional response. To her, indifference is unbearable because it means losing control. That's why peace feels so threatening to her. When you stop reacting, when you stay calm, she feels unseen. And nothing terrifies a narcissistic woman more than invisibility. The hidden fear behind her control. Behind all the manipulation lies one deep fear: abandonment. Beneath the mask of confidence and self-importance, the narcissistic woman is terrified of being insignificant, of not mattering, of being left behind. Conflict becomes her lifeline, the only way to ensure that you stay emotionally engaged, even if that engagement is filled with pain. She would rather have a chaotic connection than face the silence of being forgotten. Every argument, every dramatic explosion becomes her way of saying, "Don't stop seeing me. Don't stop reacting." But here's the painful truth. Her survival strategy destroys others in the process. Recognizing the cycle for what it is. Understanding the pattern doesn't excuse the behavior, but it gives you power. Once you see the game, it stops being invisible. The arguments no longer pull you in the same way. You begin to recognize when the conversation shifts from truth to control. You start hearing the tone behind the words, noticing the emotional bait before it hooks you. Awareness breaks the spell. You realize that not every battle deserves your energy, and not every accusation deserves a defense. How to reclaim your calm and clarity. Escaping the emotional maze of a narcissistic woman doesn't happen overnight. It starts with silence, the kind of silence that protects, not punishes. When she provokes, stay grounded. Respond with neutrality. Phrases like, "I hear what you're saying," or, "Let's continue when things are calm," shut down the emotional supply she's looking for. Keep records of interactions if needed, especially when gaslighting or denial becomes a pattern. This isn't about revenge. It's about preserving your sense of reality. Most importantly, set clear boundaries. Calmly communicate what behavior you will and won't accept, and follow through. Narcissistic people test limits. Consistency teaches them you won't bend. And when possible, detach emotionally. Observe rather than absorb. Focus on what people do, not what they promise. Every time you refuse to react, you reclaim a piece of yourself. The more you choose peace over argument, clarity over chaos, the less power her tactics hold. Disengagement doesn't mean weakness. It means mastery. You stop feeding the cycle that drains your energy. You begin to see that her control depends entirely on your response. Without your reaction, the game collapses. In the quiet that follows, something beautiful happens. Your mind clears, your self-trust returns, and the person you were before the manipulation begins to re-emerge. Freedom from a narcissistic dynamic isn't just about cutting ties. It's about rebuilding your inner peace. The scars of emotional manipulation may take time to fade, but each boundary you set, each argument you refuse to join, becomes proof of your strength. You begin to realize that peace isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you choose, protect, and live by. And as you step away from the endless tug of emotional control, you start to rediscover what genuine connection feels like. Quiet, respectful, stable. You learn to recognize chaos not as passion, but as danger. You deserve the kind of peace that doesn't ask for pain. No one deserves to live inside emotional turbulence disguised as love, friendship, or loyalty. You deserve relationships where calm feels safe, where truth isn't a weapon, and where silence doesn't mean punishment. The power of a narcissistic woman ends the moment you stop giving her your emotional energy. When you choose clarity over confusion, calm over conflict, you reclaim your voice, and with it, your freedom. Healing isn't about changing her. It's about remembering who you are without her control. If this message speaks to your experience, take a moment to breathe, to remember your worth, and to know that peace is not a distant dream. It's your right. And as always, because YouTube's algorithm tends to favor videos with strong engagement, if you feel this video has brought you value, a simple like and a quick subscribe would mean so much. It not only helps this message reach more people who need it, but also ensures you will never miss the next video that could make a difference in your journey. Thanks all.